So there are very few smartphones under $100 that we would actually recommend. However, the Nokia 1.3 is one of a select few, but with a few caveats. So let's find out why. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and enable notifications with the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. While we often spend time with devices that reach the upper echelons of three figures, the opposite end of the spectrum is more of a bit of a minefield. When you're looking for a smartphone under $150 or £150, you are contending with features literally sliding off the spec sheet, and the lower the price gets, the more this is pronounced. Cheaper hardware usually means some throwback design choices, and the Nokia 1.3 is no different. Firstly, there are some inclusions that have all but disappeared from the high end. Things like the removable battery and backplate, a headphone port and even a micro USB port for charging. All of these are more or less disappeared from the top end devices that we all know and love. Plastic too dominates, but the textured finish of the backplate in the charcoal grey is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. It aids grip and, although not quite the same, reminds me of the sandstone finish seen on older OnePlus devices. I adore the colour and I would love to see something similar on more smartphones and even higher price brackets, truth be told. I have found the backplate though a little harder to remove than other Nokia models previously, as there is no obvious lip to help you unclip from the body. It does mean that while you can remove the battery, it is a little more fiddly than usual. I found the best way was to just use your thumb and pry up with your fingernail from the micro USB port if you do want to access that battery. So the internals though, these are a little unusual for a cheap device. Usually we see a MediaTek processor, but this time around you'll find the Qualcomm Snapdragon 215 chipset, 1GB of RAM and 16GB of internal storage, which can actually be expanded up to 400GB with a microSD card. Don't go in though with massively high hopes. The 5.7-inch IPS LCD display is acceptable, but towards the low end. It has surprisingly small bezels though for such a cheap smartphone, but there is a sizable chin with the Nokia logo embossed underneath the glass. I would say it doesn't get particularly bright, but it's not actually terrible by any metric. At 1520 by 720 pixels, the 19:9 aspect ratio display is surprisingly sharp at around 295 ppi. My biggest personal gripe is that the rear-facing speaker means that when you're watching videos, they're not quite as immersive as comparably sized devices from other manufacturers. However, the Nokia 1.3's display is not the most vibrant or colour-rich. Images and videos can feel a little muted and dull. Is it bad? Not particularly, but it's not great compared to good quality panels out there. In terms of software and performance, do not expect to be doing anything other than the basics on a Nokia 1.3. This is really not a high-end performer by any metric. That said, this does come with a super lightweight version of Android 10, which runs on Android Go, which performs a heck of a lot better than you might actually expect. That's all thanks to the Go versions of regular Google software that you rely on day to day. For those that might not actually be aware, Google Go is an ultra streamlined version of Android One. It looks and feels pretty similar, but changes have been made to ensure that the basic hardware is capable of running what we often consider stock Android. Being completely honest, this is a smartphone that you would have to consider slow. Coming from flagship devices, the knockdown in speed is immediately apparent. Although once the Nokia 1.3 gets warmed up, it's usually just fine, but it can take a little while for things to load and get going. Now, if you're used to super slick loading and performance, you will begin to get frustrated. If you have only used affordable devices before though previously, this might not be much of an issue. Android 10 is also not quite the same as the full-fat version you might be used to. You do get a native dark mode plus all of the new digital wellbeing tweaks, but there is no room for Android 10 gestures. I'm guessing this is simply a performance-related omission. Some might actually prefer the on-screen 3-button navigation though, plus it's pretty easy to grasp and get used to. That said, I have noticed some lockups when trying to do too much. 1GB of RAM really does hinder the Nokia 1.3, probably more so than anything else from what I can tell. Stick to just one task though, and it's much more pleasant to use day to day. Another interesting inclusion within the software is that of Face Unlock. The registration process was pretty painless, but since registering I'm not actually sure it's even worked properly yet, or even once at all. Maybe it's an issue with my unit, but it is something to note, especially as there is no physical fingerprint reader. You'll be relying on PIN codes and passwords. The Nokia 1.3 has a modest 8 megapixel camera that isn't particularly great compared to the competition. However, this is the first device to ship with Google Camera Go pre-installed. I'm not entirely sure if it makes a huge difference given the weak camera hardware on offer, but you do get some neat inclusions in terms of software. I would advise though that you toggle HDR mode on right away, otherwise your images can be quite dingy, dark and lacking in any sort of vibrancy. This really helps add some life and character to photos, especially considering the camera is a notable weak point of this package. Portrait mode is also available here on the front-facing and rear-facing cameras, thanks to Google Camera Go. The results, as we said in our initial hands-on, are spotty but still manage to be impressive given the weakened hardware on offer here. Being honest, I have to say the camera is a mixed at best. Sometimes there is a lack of sharpness, but other times it's actually not bad at all and can be pretty impressive. That said, going in with tempered expectations means you won't come out fully disappointed. This is a camera just used for quick snaps, nothing more, nothing less. Coming with a 3000 mAh battery for a phone of this size isn't likely to be too much of an issue either. That is in part due to the low power CPU in combination with the low resolution display. Add in Android Go and you've sort of got a recipe for all day longevity. Being able to swap out the battery is also going to be a big draw for many people out there. I'm still disappointed though that you have to charge via micro USB, but it is a cheap connector and cables are easy to replace and pick up for cheap. Don't expect a 2-day smartphone unless you don't interact though with the phone much throughout the day and you won't go disappointed. So overall, if you want a backup smartphone or just a burner phone with dual SIM and removable battery options, then I think the Nokia 1.3 is a genuinely solid option. To be honest though, I feel you would be better off holding on or saving up and picking up the Nokia 5.3 if you want a far better overall experience, albeit at double the price point. We often talk about the differences between those $1,000 plus flagship phones and the sub $500 mid-range devices, but at the proper sub 200 budget segments, you really start to see corners slashed to cut costs. The Nokia 1.3 is not bad, but when you can double that $99 entry and get decent performance and a far better overall experience, then it becomes harder to suggest you pick one up. Either way though, it's a neat little package that might be ideal as a backup for a small child or elderly relative, or want to just keep in the car in case of emergencies. Making it your main device is something we'd actively tell you to avoid. It could even though be a cheap MP3 player for fitness enthusiasts out there that also doubles as a point of contact in case you need to take a call or a text. With that said though, it's always a minefield under $100 or £100, but the Nokia 1.3 is just about gets our seal of approval and is about the lowest end smartphone we can actually suggest right now. That said, let's open the floor to you though. Are you interested in the Nokia 1.3 and by extension Android Go? Let us know down in the comments section below. But until next time, this is Damien with 9to5 Google saying thanks for watching and I will speak to you later.